Hank Henshaw was a brilliant human scientist who had earned himself a position as an astronaut for an expedition funded by LexCorp. He piloted a shuttle known as the Excalibur with 3 other crew members, including Hank's wife, Terry. When they successfully reached orbit around Earth, they were exposed to cosmic radiation. Their shuttle crashed, and 2 of the crew members found their bodies remade into strange forms. One became formed entirely of pure cosmic radiation, the other into an unusual body made of rock, gravel, and branches. Hank and Terry survived the crash with no apparent side effects other than Hank's hair turning white. They took their fellow crew members back to Metropolis, where they hoped to use the LexCorp facilities to help their friends. The 4 encountered Superman and got into a fight with him due to a misunderstanding. Though they resolved this conflict, Hank and his wife began to feel the side effects of the cosmic radiation. Hank's flesh began to fall off the man's bones, while Terry started to fade from existence entirely. And the 2 other crew members killed themselves after both suffering psychotic breaks. Hank passed away just as he found a cure for himself and his wife. Superman was able to use Hank's work to save Terry, the sole survivor of this traumatic incident. In response, the woman was institutionalized, not knowing that while Hank's body died, his mind survived. It had been converted to energy thanks to the radiation, and he managed to send himself into a machine before his death. Now possessing a robotic body, Hank sought Terry out, only to inadvertently scare her in his new form. Not wanting to cause her any more grief, Hank decided to leave Earth for good, seeking out Superman's Kryptonian birthing matrix and using it to grow himself a new body. Superman tried to stop the man, but Hank escaped, flying away and, for a time, exploring the cosmos on his own. He was at first a peaceful explorer, interested only in learning more about the universe around him. However, the cosmic radiation, the extreme nature of the Excalibur tragedy, and the effects of Hank's new semi-Kryptonian body led to the man now viewing himself only as a being called Cyborg Superman. The trauma of it all caused Hank to go insane. His origins are often distorted by this insanity, with Hank having convinced himself that Superman is largely responsible for what happened to the astronaut, while in truth it really was nothing more than a freak accident. Hank's altered body gave him control over a great deal of technology, able to morph machines and computers and use them to his will. He also gained many aspects of Superman's powers, thanks to the birthing matrix creating flesh parts truly made from Kal-El's own DNA. As a result, he is very much as strong as any Kryptonian under a yellow sun, but with the added ability to augment his body further thanks to his cybernetic implants. As such, Hank removed his kryptonite weakness, and while his body could theoretically still die, his mind, which exists still in the form of pure energy, is effectively immortal, in spite of Hank's own growing desires to just die, as his existence was becoming increasingly tortured and distorted by his deteriorating mind. In space, a now corrupted cyborg Superman encountered Mongol, and enslaved the alien for his own purposes. He returned to Earth at a time when Superman apparently died, and posed as one of 4 possible individuals who were each thought of as Superman potentially returned to life. He often secretly worked for his own purposes while pretending to be Superman during this time. For example, when he encountered Doomsday, the villain that killed the original Superman, Hank threw the being into space, seemingly defeating it, but really using it as an excuse to plant a tracker on the villain so he'd always know Doomsday's location and would be able to use the villain later for his own purposes. With the goal of ultimately corrupting Superman's image, Hank did appear to work as a superhero for a time and did save a number of people during this period. In truth, he was solely focused on his own psychotic plans and brought an alien ship to Coast City, wanting to remake this settlement in his image and to erase the memory of his wife, who was from this city. Cyborg Superman destroyed the entire city and every single one of its 7 million inhabitants. This act was one of the most successful blows any villain had ever inflicted on this Earth, and the effects of this would be felt for decades. Cyborg Superman tried to frame the Eradicator as the culprit for the city's destruction, and nearly destroyed the android in the process, before setting his sights on his next target, Metropolis. He nearly succeeded at destroying this city as well, stopped only by the combined efforts of Superboy, Supergirl, Steel, a rebuilt Eradicator, and Superman himself, who was, at long last, returned to life. Though defeated, Cyborg Superman would be a continued enemy of Superman and other heroes, often using other villains and sources of power to attempt to overcome his many enemies. He used the tracker on Doomsday and the villain himself to take over the new God's world of Apocalypse. He nearly succeeded, even defeating Darkseid thanks to Doomsday's power, but was eventually stopped by Superman once again. In another incident, Cyborg Superman successfully took over the longtime enemies of the Green Lanterns known as the Manhunters, and upgraded them with Kryptonian technology. The Green Lantern Corps stopped him, and he saw for himself the power of their rings. He was imprisoned by the Green Lanterns on their home world of Oa. When Sinestro created his own corps based on the power of fear, the newly christened Yellow Lanterns attacked Oa, freeing many prisoners held there. Cyborg Superman was among them, and he joined forces with the Sinestro Corps. Hank made a deal with the Anti-Monitor, an ally of the Sinestro Corps, that if he helped them, the Anti-Monitor would do what Hal Jordan and Superman couldn't, and finally end Hank's miserable and insane life. Arming the cyborg with an astounding 10 Sinestro Corps rings, the Yellow Lanterns attacked Earth, with Hank ordered to handle the Justice League himself. With such increased power, Cyborg Superman proved more than a match for the League, including Superman, and was only stopped when the Kryptonian was assisted by Supergirl and Power Girl. The three Kryptonians combined managed to overpower the cyborg, and, when the forces of the Yellow Lanterns were ultimately defeated, Hank Henshaw was killed, thankful to the Green Lanterns for finally granting him his greatest wish. However, much to his own dismay, the Manhunters managed to retrieve his head and reanimate it, so Cyborg Superman returned to life once more. He battled heroes such as Booster Gold and Kyle Rayner before coming into conflict with Superman once again, where he was again defeated by his longtime enemy and finally sent into custody with Star Labs. Here is where Hank remained until the world was eventually remade into a new one, and the original version of Hank Henshaw disappeared. In the new world, a new version of Hank Henshaw existed as a normal human scientist once again, and he too was sent on an expedition in a ship called the Excalibur out in space. The Superman of the old world, who remembered what happened to the man, checked in on the ship after it too crashed back on Earth after a 10-year journey to Jupiter. Superman faced Henshaw and a villain named Blank, who had telepathic abilities and was controlling Henshaw. After Blank was defeated, Henshaw didn't appear to remember anything that had happened and was not transformed by this incident. Eventually, the two versions of Superman across the new and old world were merged into one, and Hank Henshaw gained back his memories of his original life. He broke into one of Superman's fortresses and was able to transform himself back into Cyborg Superman, and assembled a team of Superman's enemies: Metallo, the Eradicator, Blank, Mongol, and General Zod, all gathered with the intent to get revenge on Superman once and for all, and to seize the hero's Fortress of Solitude for themselves. They were only defeated by the combined forces of Superman's allies, and Cyborg Superman was left trapped in the Phantom Zone. Though the threat of the villain is for now abated, Superman has vowed that one day he will find a way to help his longtime enemy, and if possible, save Henshaw from his insanity and return the man to his human form. A different version of Cyborg Superman also appeared on this new world. His name was Zor-El, and he was once the father of the hero Supergirl. He was converted into a version of Cyborg Superman by Brainiac, and was used by this supervillain as a scout to find stronger species throughout the universe. Zor-El was eventually put out of his misery by his brother, Jor-El, father of Superman, who had also managed to survive Krypton's destruction. Many other versions of Cyborg Superman also exist across the multiverse, most of which are usually villainous in nature. Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and thank you for watching my origins and bio on Cyborg Superman. So I've been looking forward to this one. Cyborg Superman is a fun villain and kind of one of my favorites out of Superman's rogues gallery. On the surface, he's a very basic character. His design is literally implied in his name and isn't really much more sophisticated than that. He's a cyborg version of Superman, a villainous version of the character that basically looks the same but with cybernetic parts attached. Beyond that, there really isn't much to the villain until we dig into the surface, and there's a pretty fun story to him. Out of the 4 Supermen who replaced Kal-El after his death, this one is the only true villain. And he's an example of why, just because he looks like Superman, even with the cybernetic parts, it doesn't make him a hero. There's more to him than just the cape and the costume. It has to do with the character and what he does. Because, oh man, this villain is one of the biggest villains out there. As I said in the bio, there's few other villains out there with a track record as successful as Cyborg Superman. Few others who just wiped out a city from the face of the earth, and that really says something. Aside from the extraterrestrial threats and the cosmic threats in DC, there's few other characters that have been as destructive and as personable as Cyborg Superman. Few other humans as successful as him, let's put it that way. I also really like how his origins is just basically a horribly twisted version of the Fantastic Four origin story, where everything just goes terribly wrong. That's a funny little detail, although I can understand why they maybe don't focus on that much in the present DC timeline. But nevertheless, there is only one version of canon for Cyborg Superman at this point, and that's pretty awesome. Because he's a great character overall, and a really fun threat, has a good track record, and has a ton of awesome moments throughout his history. He was great as the Yellow Lantern, and was a really fun addition to that whole Sinestro Corps war that went on back then. I would recommend those comics as part of the overall Jeff Johns era Green Lantern run that introduced all the other Green Lantern Corps. But Hank Henshaw's role during Reign of Superman is also a really standout arc, and was just some interesting stuff done by Dan Jurgens. And as always, I think Revenge is just one of the best examples of a modern Superman story out there, and a really good take on his character. He had a great role putting this team together, only for things to go horribly wrong. I like how he's able to bully around villains like Mongol, but can still accept orders from much more powerful characters, such as General Zod or the Anti-Monitor. It's a fun example of a character having an intimidation factor without going overboard. He's a threat, but not the world's biggest threat out there, but still the one that needs to be taken seriously, and a fun villain overall. The instability of Hank Henshaw, the way he sort of twists everything to make him the victim, and him the underdog in the story, even though it's very much not the case, it makes him an interesting character on the whole. So let me know what you think in the comments section below, and thanks for watching. We have one more of the 4 characters who replace Superman, and then it's a pretty straight shot to the end of our Superman bio series. But I quite enjoyed doing these, as we're getting to near the end, I have to say. It's been fun learning more and more about Superman canon. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I was really looking forward to this one because Cyborg Superman is a lot of fun. And finally, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.